Good morning and welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where I live stream every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. For those that may be new, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We are an online resource for teaching people about behavior through working with animals. We focus on helping animals and people learn with respect and trust using the science of behavior called applied behavior analysis. Our teaching is worldwide, and our guidance services are both virtual and in person. And if you think I'm reading this, I am, because I redesigned my mission statement and with the help of some friends to fine tune and clearly explain what we do. We teach people how to empower and enrich animals' lives through modifying behavior, teaching new behaviors, and trust through understanding the science of behavior without the need for force or aversives. Because when we know better, we do better. Um, so, with that being said, you can find more work about um, the guidance and teaching we provide through our website, the Animal Behavior Center. You can also always contact me at my email address, which is Laura, Lara, at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. So I really want to go ahead and dive deep into this. I have a few slides to show. This is just where you can find out more about our memberships, our online memberships, our in-person workshops, which you'll find under our events, the writing that we do, and how to contact me. So, good morning, Stephanie. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, whatever that may mean to a lot of people, which is going to lead me into what I want to talk about today. Um, I did, I was trying to think of what can I talk about with the beginning of the new year. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever, it's a new year, but it is a time for us to, uh, it's an annual time for us to reflect on where do we want to be this year? And this is our life, the only lives we're going to have. And are we doing with it what we want to do? So I wanted to discuss about how training animals can enhance our understanding of human behavior by examining the principles of applied behavior analysis. Um, and before I dive deep into that, I'm going to say I was just reading a research paper right before I started this and reading about how stress affects the amygdala and how when we get stressed, it sends us into a fight or flight mode. And a lot of people are starting in technology is shaping how we live our lives. And our lives can be so stressful. And a lot of times we live within a constant state of stress. And the more technology advances, the more our lives are becoming stressful because people can reach us in numerous different ways. I know it can get stressful and overwhelming for me. People can call, people can email, people can message us through Messenger, people text us. Um, and social media, I see it controls so much a part of our lives. And I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but so many people's lives are lived on their phone. Um, and I am getting to understanding behavior through working with animals. So much affects our lives, such as the television, politics, the news. The first thing I do in the morning is never the same. But I'll come out, pour myself a cup of coffee. I turn on the TV, and there were a period of years where I just turned off the TV. But I turned it on the other day and I was watching the news and I made a comment to my sister. I was like, oh my God, it's all doom and gloom. It's the bombing here, the bombing there, the plane crash here. But the news, and this is behavior, using applied behavior analysis to understand behavior is using observable and measurable events. The reason the news exists, and if it is even successful, is because of the ratings we give it. So it's the doom and gloom, the plane crashes, um, the horror across that's happening across the world is what we tune into. So that behavior is being reinforced if we continue to do it. And I watched a whole half-hour episode of the news, and at the very end, it was happy, and there was 2 minutes of happy news, and I was like, "Well, if that doesn't say something about society, how if we're keeping people interested through all this, I don't know what I wanna call it, negative news, drama." A lot of people thrive off of drama. And what I did was I was just like, "Click, I have control of this." It was affecting my mood that morning, and I was like, "I have control of this. I'm turning it off. I'm gonna find a different news station if I watch the news at all." But, there's so much on there about the politics. We have control over this, and how we let the world around us affect our behavior is pretty much, how we respond to it. Um, so when I moved to a new house. I moved in September, and I made a promise to myself that, um, I was gonna focus on my stress level, and get it under control because it is affecting the behavior of the animals in my care, and it's affecting everything around me. So I have control over this, and I will pick what is most important for me to do today. And another thing we do that's really stressful is put too much on our plates. And I have found that, like, if I wake up in the morning and I'm like, "I wanna get these 7 things done today," the likelihood of me getting those 7 things done is very unlikely. So I will pick the top 1 or the top 2. So once I achieve those, I thrive off of achievement and getting things done and making things better, the lives of other animals and people better. And I'm going to start putting myself up there into number one because nobody in my life is going to do better if I'm not doing better for myself. And those are my animals. So, and I've also kept track of this. The reason we thrive off of volunteers is because the work environment that I provide. And we use applied behavior analysis on each other because we know what it means. We understand how it works. We understand how behavior works. And if I walk into a room and see people's faces stressed or cautious, like, or I get this side glance, like, "Oh, Laura's here." I don't want people walking on pins and needles around me. I don't want people walking on eggshells around me. I want them to be happy. And Lindsay Douglas, when I go into the center on Saturday, she always says, "Are we puking rainbows today?" And yeah, I said, "Yeah, we're gonna be puking some major rainbows today." So that helps. It's things like that that we say and use with each other. We're very sarcastic, we're very funny, and we work around animals all day, and we focus on the behavior of those animals. I can't tell you what they're thinking. I don't want to be anthropomorphic because it can affect my approach in working with animals, and sometimes it can be pretty dangerous. But what we do in applied behavior analysis is we focus on observable, measurable events. But I thrive off of working in a very successful environment. And because, and I don't, excuse me, I'm just getting over getting sick. if if people are stressed around me And if I'm using force and ultimatums to get control over people, I know the science of behavior and what outcome I'm going to get. Besides, I just don't want to work that way. When you're working in an environment that is very stressful and full of ultimatums and meaning get it done or else, that is a form of negative reinforcement and coercion. And in a work environment like that, people are going to give you just enough behavior to get the job done and get the hell out. Um, I know because I've seen it, and I don't want to work in that environment. And that is the same for our animals. When we're using force, coercion, ultimatums, giving the words, using the word commands. I just gave a presentation with somebody in Australia on be careful with those commands. There is no you there in applied behavior analysis, we don't give commands because we know the side effect of using them, which means do it or else. And when you're working under that kind of a situation, like I said, people are going to give you enough behavior to get the job done and get the hell out. At the Animal Behavior Center, a lot of times we're working extra hours, overtime, um, and I get a lot of people willing to want to work that way because it is a pleasant work environment to be in, and we need to keep that in mind when working with our animals and seeing the results of behavior. Um, so I make it a key point to take control of my life and surround myself with like-minded people. And I was also reading that finances are one of the most stressful forms of it's one of the most stressful things we have in our lives. And it brings me back to something my father always used to say, which was it's just money. They print more. Don't let money run your life. And I don't. I try to let experiences run my life. Um, I do surround myself with animals, and there's no place I would rather be. But it's all about balance, making sure we're not over extending ourselves because it will have effect on behavior. And when you're running around extremely stressed, you're not getting a lot done. Um, and I also wanted to mention this is true. I always preach it with people. I mean, with animals, it's the same with people. We learn more effectively and we retain more information when we're not in stressful situations. Um, but animals and people learn faster for earning reinforcement for what they did and what to do versus being told what not to do. Um, so we can better ourselves through understanding behavior by applying it to our animals. Um, I know I give a lot of workshops, and when I start, usually my workshops are 2 days because it's so full of information that if we go into a third day, I see it become like an information overload. And my goal in having these workshops is people learning, then standing up and applying it to the animal, seeing how it works, understanding the laws of behavior, and a lot of times about 3/4 of the way through my first day of giving a workshop, it's not uncommon for me to see people break down and start crying, and now I know because I see it so much, but they're like, but I will be empathetic and ask what is happening, but I already know what's happening, and it's because when they start understanding the science of behavior and they start applying it to the animals that we're working with in the workshop, The crying often starts because they start understanding, and they'll mention, now I understand what's happening in my relationships with my family, with my loved ones, and it's true. And that's when I know, when they tell me this and I ask them back, um, do you now see how you have the tools that you need to change behavior, change your approach, and understand why the things are happening that are happening in your life? And it's a very effective. And when you're working with animals, um, especially when you have numerous people working with animals, you need to understand the science of behavior, because when you have numerous different people interacting with it, we're all interacting differently. And I often say, when an when you're working with an animal and you're teaching it something new, and then a week after teaching that behavior, you ask for, let's say, for example, um, and this is important. Say you're teaching a nail trim, teaching a voluntary nail trim to a dog, to a bird, to a pig, whatever. When you're trimming this nail, you've had to take steps to deliver reinforcement to the animal to say, when this happens, which is contingency. You want the animal understanding, oh, this is what's earning me the reinforcement. When the animal understands that, um, the communication is there. And then when you move on to trimming this nail, this is a totally different behavior. Whether you're using a Dremel or clippers, um, just because you can Dremel this nail doesn't mean you can start and Dremel this nail. When you have to move your body in a new position, or the animal has to move their body in a new position, this is a new one. You're training a whole new behavior. And I tell people a lot of times, um, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is taking too big of steps in teaching behavior. Does the animal understand? And if you're not sure, um, the animal probably doesn't know, because you will see the animal understand what you're asking when you're training it. And a lot of times, another example of taking too big of steps could be fear. The animal showing signs of fear. We just showed an example of this. I showed a recording, a clip of me training an animal, and the other day in our memberships, and I was like, boom. And it was just a 12-second clip. And I said, what do you see? And some people may have said fear, and I will come back and ask, what are the observable, measurable behaviors that you see? Because when you focus on those, if it is fear, we want fear to go away. And we have fear go away by making the animal, teaching the animal to be comfortable with this. What are the observable, measurable events that we're going to focus on? Because you want to see if these are fear response events, behaviors, you want to see those decrease. And you want, at the same time, you want to see the empowering behaviors start to increase. And when you have an empowered, curious animal in front of you, you've got all the room in the world to make their lives just explode with learning events. And we're doing this right now with Stan, the fish, and numerous different animals. There are different cues that I give that show training is about ready to start. And studies show, if you're actually using positive reinforcement training, it's the animal's preferred form of enrichment. There are different cues. I put a if the animal if I'm going to use a food if I'm going to use food as a positive reinforcer, which is only part of the time, I will see anticipatory behavior. I will see birds fly to their stations where they know to go when training starts. I will see Stan the fish go up and down in his tank like this. It's anticipatory behavior. I will see the wolves running to me, waiting for me. Like I take the climbs, the platforms into the wolves. Um, I had to introduce those to them because they were a new object. They didn't know what it was. Through pairing um, the new object with a positive reinforcer, which was my attention, tactile touch, that platform became a cue, became a conditioned reinforcer because it is paired with it. So now when they see me approach their enclosure, they do show behaviors as getting excited. But when I pick up those platforms, you see a whole new behavior. They'll start jumping and running, patiently waiting for me to walk in with these platforms. Um, I was thinking there was somewhere I was going with that, but that is what I want to see when I'm approaching an animal. That is what I want to see when I walk into the center with all the people working there. I don't want to see them side glancing, saying, "Here comes Laura." There is a book that I read, and it was a great book, and I've read it twice, and I'm getting ready to read it a third time. And if you guys remind me, I'll look it up and tell you what it is. But it's called you. It's not called this, but it's about using applied behavior analysis in the workforce, and it was this board certified behavior analyst that's called into workforces saying, why does the management not work here? Why are we not getting the productive results that we want? And it's all about his experience going into different workplace environments and showing exactly why it's not working. You you can't use force, positive punishers, aversives, coercion, ultimatums to successfully run a company. It'll run 10 times better when you're using positive reinforcement and understanding applied behavior analysis. You're going to get those people wanting to work more. And it's hard for me to not go to work if you call it work, because I love what I do, so it's hard for me to call it work. It's hard for me to stay away from work because I love being there so much, because I love being around the people that I work with, and I love being around these animals. It's a pleasant place to be. Um, so where I was going with this, if everybody isn't on the same page and we learn through information, and also animals will show signs of fear because they don't have enough information. Same thing with people. If you walk into, I know if I walk into an unfamiliar environment, I'm quiet. I've said this before, people will say that I'm described as shy. I'm not shy. I'm not a shy person. But what I'm doing is gathering information. I'm watching how people are interacting with each other, and I'm gathering information on behavior and observable, measurable events of what kind of situation I am in and how I need to respond. So like I said, if everybody isn't on the same page and you're interacting with these animals, you can cause a lot of fear and frustration with the animal. If you're not seeing progress, whatever you describe progress as, you need to sit back and analyze the situation. What is happening when you're there? What's happening before you get there? And what's happening after? Um, so, um, There was somebody who told me, we had a, registered behavior technician that used to volunteer with us that said, sat down and showed her how I shaped a voluntary hoof trim with Milo the pig. If you've ever worked with pigs, you wanna talk about flight response. Um And I showed her how I shaped this behavior, and I got her involved in it. I had her help me, train him, which I helped her I had her help me sit in on a training session, which I had trained this by myself, and she came back and told me, she goes, "Thinking about the principles that you used in teaching this pig that to be comfortable with the big ass clippers coming out, the big clunk it makes when you clip a hoof, and not only the reinforcer being delivered, but the rate of reinforcement being delivered and how you approach that, how you shape that rate of reinforcement to get duration." She said, "Help me work with a child who has autism that needs his nails clipped drastically, but I but wouldn't let anybody approach with the fingernail clippers." She goes, "I took the approach that I learned through you and successfully implemented this with this child that they had been working with and struggling with for so long." So, if you think about this in the workforce, in your interactions with people, with each other, and through how we interact with animals, think about the tactics that we use. Force, flooding, which means showing an animal that's beyond threshold with fear response and not removing the feared object. Will it work? It might work, but it might blow up in your face. And if it blows it, like throwing a child into a pool that doesn't know how to swim, that's a good explanation of flooding, where here, just deal with it and figure it out. Through studies in applied behavior analysis, they have learned that is not the best approach. And I am not going to do that to my animals because I don't want to put them through that type of stress. And I don't want to have to work on the counter conditioning because it is going to blow up in your face. Negative reinforcement, meaning the animal or the person has to give you the behavior to escape, avoid the consequence. We know what the side effects of using that are. And if you don't, message me and I'll let you know. The animal can and the people can show frustration through inconsistencies. You think you're giving a cue. If it's slightly different, you could be cueing, especially with my deaf dog and my deaf and blind dog. Touch are the cues. This means sit, and this means bark. And so many times the animal's looking at you like, was that a sit or a bark? So they give both, or they keep giving one until they get their desired behavior, till they get the response that earns them the reinforcement. I don't want the animals in my care guessing, just like I don't want the people that I work with or that are working with my animals guessing, because I don't know what state of confusion that's putting the animal in, and I don't want to work with an animal that's confused. An animal that's confused means it doesn't have enough information, and I don't want to see what happens next. Intermittent schedules of reinforcement, um, and Reinforcing unknowingly reinforcing undesired behaviors is the number one reasons why animals lose their homes. How many times do we do that with people? Unknowingly reinforcing undesired behaviors. Go to any grocery store and watch the kids flailing and screaming uncontrollably because they're not getting what they want. And then the parent is negatively reinforced to throw a candy bar to get the kid to shut up. Hence, snot-nosed Johnny. Um, Intermittent schedules of reinforcement can keep undesired behaviors extremely strong. And it's important to develop trust, consistency, and respect through empowering animals and empowering people. Hence the reason I showed the picture on the graphic announcing this morning's coffee with the critters. So, um, set your goals, set achievable goals, set them small. So you make sure that you achieve them because the achieving it, getting the response that you want, whether it's in your own personal goal or your goals with your animals, that is a positive reinforcer to help keep you on track. Um, I want to see animals and the people I work with excited to see me. Um, I will not positively reinforce a behavior I don't want to see maintain or increase. I'm really good at positively punishing behavior that I want. Boom, gone. I want this situation done. I want this situation out of my life. I need this person out of my life. I'm good at that too. But if I like you, love you, I want a relationship with you, I'm going to positively reinforce our interaction together. I want the animals excited to see me. I don't want to see them cautious on my approach. Remind me if you want to know the name of that book, because I had some people ask me, why are you doing research and reading research papers and reading books about human behavior? I said, I'm not. I'm reading them about applied behavior analysis because it's applicable across the board, no matter what the species. So people and animals learn quicker through earning reinforcement for the behaviors you want them to do, versus being told no. That's why, for an example, if somebody's working really hard for me, which if you're working hard for me, it means you're working hard for the animal. And I want people working hard for the animal. For example, Barb at the center made this amazing piece of enrichment for our ring-tailed lemurs. And when I first saw it, she wasn't there, and I was like, "How the hell is that gonna work?" But when she brought it to me and explained it, I was like, "That is brilliant. I love that. That is amazing. Let's put it to work." That was enough of a positive reinforcer for her to continue the work she was doing. How do I know? Because the behavior of her being creative and continuing to design this type of enrichment not only increased, but it maintained. So that lets me know, um, in her work in designing enrichment for animals is amazing. Um, so just telling somebody they did a good job, acknowledging it, um, but regardless, leave me your questions, comments, and situations if you want to do it here, in this live stream. Even after the replay, I will pay attention and I will give you my input if you want to hear it. I will give you some answers if you want to hear that. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. And I want to say if you want to follow the work we're doing with the alligators, with Stan, some of the other animals, pay attention to the Sam I Can Foundation's Facebook page and message us through there if you want to get on our email newsletter list. That is our nonprofit where we bring in animals we do a lot of things, but one of the things we do there is show the animals we work with that we're going to be euthanized or have lost their homes, and how we use applied behavior analysis to teach new behaviors, train new behaviors, empower the absolute hell out of these animals' lives. Um, Also, you can join me in our online memberships. We're getting ready to announce all our in-person workshops. Hey, Chantel, good to see you. I'm going to go back and read through some of these comments afterwards, and you can listen to our podcasts, look at some of our webinars, um, and contact me about online consultations. Here's the memberships that we currently have that are very active. And with that, I want to say thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. Please keep in mind some of this information I have shared with you. All right. Talk to you guys soon.